watched this movie, and it's not available in Australia. It doesn't have its own wiki page, which is weird because it doesn't look cheap. They spent a bit of money on it because it was Screenbox, and they're trying to get people to like join up to that in America. But
we don't have that here, which is annoying because there's a lot of interesting stuff on there. But
it's annoying because in America, there's like they've got Screenbox and they got Shudder, and some of the stuff's bought by Shudder, and some of it now, I guess, is poached by Screenbox. And one of them we straight up don't get here, so now we're just not going to get anything that comes out. Like, I think History of the Occult was only on Screenbox, so that's only in America. Took us ages to get the Outwaters. Like, I hated it, but I wanted to see the Outwaters.
Well, that's the thing. It's like that's the fun of being able to just turn on TV back in the day. The old free-to-air television. It used to be quite nice to just turn on the TV and the choice is taken away from you. You don't have to worry about what's on. When would you ever watch the last 20 minutes of Bird on a Wire?
Yeah.
You wouldn't put that on. But if it's on, you kind of go, oh yeah, Bird on a Wire. I kind of miss not having to think so much about my choices. Like, I like having my Blu-ray collection and, all of my various free streaming services. I kind of miss having free-to-air TV sometimes.
It used to be you just wouldn't have any feeling of obligation to do with your viewing. You'd have less of a feeling of, oh, I really need to check that out. Because you know what? If it wasn't playing on the TV or at the video store, you weren't going to watch it.
That's the thing. If you really wanted it, you could buy it on VHS for whatever, $40 it ended up being.
You could go to the weird import store in town, and amongst all the porn, there's like some weird old French crime movie, and you could buy that for like $50.
But then you'd also be quite happy to watch the weird old French crime movie that happened to be on SBS at 11 o'clock at night. And if it happened to have hardcore sex scenes in it, all the better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You would see one nipple for an hour of horrifying Swedish melodrama.
But wasn't that nipple worth it, Martin?
Yeah.
Speaking of hardcore sexual scenes, welcome to Reanimates, Martin.
Look, Jeff's done his odd way. We've got a Castle Freak.
Yeah, where he growls that girl out.
I hate that expression.
No, I like it.
I don't like that.
It's he's our evil clergyman. That's another sexy movie. He's done a little bit of sex, but this film does not have any sex in it. Far from it, I would say. Yeah, and no romance really either. It is mostly fun fantasy.
I'd argue there is romance in it. It's just a bit confusing for various reasons.
That's true. Well, the movie that we're talking about is Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls. Only came out last year, 2023. So
it's quite a mouthful. I will say, in the film's defense, every element of that title is important to the plot of the film.
Yes, it does. It does make sense. It's, I think, if I can remember correctly, it's the most recent credit on Jeff's IMDb that has come out. So there's, I think, a couple that are in post-production or something, so they don't count yet. But this is his most recent film. What I've told everybody who would like to watch this, especially you when I send you this, is your enjoyment of this film will depend entirely on how you feel about the central character, who is, I guess, a bit of a meme in a way.
Onyx the Fortuitous. He's very much a sort of comedy thing where it's this sort of a collection of ticks. He's supposed to be a weird little Satanist dude who does spells of magic, I guess, and then they go wrong. Have you seen any of the videos? I have not seen any of the videos.
I have, yeah. I've seen a few of his things. I mean, I first remember seeing him. He would pop up in what seemed like real news reports. I have no idea if these were real American news reports, but there was the one I remember most strongly was he pops up at the unveiling of a statue of Baphomet.
I'm just excited to see my Lord and Savior Baphomet represented in such glorious Italian stone. I do hope his eyes gaze upon me and that my allegiance is recognized. I don't know. Notice me, Senpai! Notice me!
Yeah, it's hard to explain to him, but I feel like if I showed you a photo, you'd know who he was, just from if you are chronically online, like I am. The shtick can be annoying.
It is infuriating. I find him a very irritating figure, and we can talk later on about like this particular kind of internet character. I don't like him, and if it hadn't been for the podcast, I absolutely wouldn't have watched this past like 10 minutes. And that actually would have been kind of sad because the film itself ends up being kind of a cool little thing that he's made here. He's directed like 5 full-length movies or something.
He's done a lot of stuff. When you look at his IMDb credits, like lots of shorts and lots of little projects and stuff. So yeah, he's well versed, which is probably how he managed to collect a lot of good people around him in this film, like good production design and effects and stuff like that. The guy we're talking about is Andrew Bowser, otherwise known as Onyx. Written, directed, and lead actor. The overall plot of this is basically Andrew Bowser plays Marcus Trilbury, otherwise known as Onyx. I'm going to call him Onyx for the podcast because it's easier. He's just this like nerd dude who is a part of this sort of like, I guess it's like a I don't know if it's an online club or if it's like a mail-in kind of magazine thing, some sort of club where they worship this man called Bartok the Magnificent. He's kind of a sorcerer, and he wins a competition to go to Bartok's home, his mansion, to be a part of this ritual that Bartok wants to undertake. Demon, that's the overall arch, and hijinks ensue, obviously. There's a few fun little, I guess... we open with one of my favourite cameos, which is obviously Onyx's mother, played by podcast favourite Barbara Crampton. She doesn't get nearly enough time in this film. She has a lover called Todd, which is a great shitty American stepdad name, who's played by Ryan Stanger, I think. He's one of those comedy Bang Bang guys.
I think he's Amy's ex-boyfriend from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Onyx, at this point, he's a man in what I think is possibly supposed to be his early 30s, but look, could pass for early 40s.
It's not clear.
Living at home with his mother and his stepdad. The mum and stepdad have been married for a year. Onyx and the stepdad hate each other.
Yes. They fight like children.
Yes.
But I think the fact that Onyx, the character, does kind of dress like a teenage boy, so it's hard to tell an age.
The thing about it is, about this particular character, Onyx, is that I have met people like this. Certainly, this is a comedy character. You're supposed to laugh at his multitude of tics, like his odd behavior, his way of speaking, like an Invader Zim character. Like he has the thing of, I don't know, like the weird little glitch, but everything he says is basically a tick. That's all he has. If you strip that away, there's just nothing in, living in this perpetual Arrested Development. What this film reminds me of a lot is like an SNL sketch, where it's an SNL movie where you have a character who would work maybe for a 5-minute sketch, and honestly, maybe not even really then, like just a very aggressive, screamy person. But on the 5 minutes on a Saturday night, you can handle that. But then they give them a 90-minute story and you want to shoot yourself in the head.
There is a sense in this film of this character being a little too sad to be inherently comedic. Like, I understand the purpose of like pathetic characters and underdogs and anti-heroes and all that stuff. But there's a lot about Onyx that tells me that, like, for most of the film, he's quite unhappy with his life and his self. And he just, I don't know, maybe if the character had more sort of, maybe if he had this shitty life and, he was a virgin and stuff, maybe if he had that, but he was like quite optimistic about it, maybe I'd feel differently about it. But I'm not spoiling anything by saying that the movie has a happy ending, everything turns out fine.
Yeah.
So Bartok's whole deal is he wants to raise this demon called Abaddon, some sort of eternal power deal. The mythos around the spells and rituals that happens gets a little bit clunky.
There's a lot of it. There's a lot of directing traffic. The amulet needs 5 souls. The souls can only be imbued while they're wearing the peridot necklaces. Yeah. If you're not wearing the necklaces, you can see the ghouls. All of these are things that you kind of have to keep track of as the plot goes on.
Yeah, and it gets a little bit unwieldy.
Oh, one thing that I was thinking of, Bartok the Magnificent. You know how the bat in Anastasia's called Bartok as well?
Yes.
Is there like a famous magical thing for somebody called Bartok?
That I know of. I mean, for all we know, he's named after Bartok from Anastasia.
There is a reference to Fievel Goes West.
Yeah, there's a lot of capital R references to things in this movie. All
to things that like millennials would recognize. There's a reference to the movie
Absolutely.
Radio Flyer, which was a kids movie from the 90s that I don't think
get that. Yeah, and there's a reference to Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Yeah, it's very millennial coded. And
yeah, which is interesting because the frenetic pace and the sort of TikTok appeal of the main character makes you think, oh, this is intended for Gen Z, that sort of like.
But that's the thing, I don't even know if Andrew Bowser or Onyx or whatever. I don't even know if he's on TikTok. I don't think he's. I mean, the character is well before TikTok. It's more of a.
So it's like
It's more of a-
Fred era. Remember Fred?
What's Fred?
Fred was like a kid who was supposed to be like unmedicated ADHD. So it was like this sped up video that they would
Oh,
play. He got 3 full movies.
that
Speaking
kind.
of Onyx the Magnificent.
Actually, yes, I do remember. I read briefly about him in a sort of like, history of the internet sort of book that I read once. Yeah, early internet stuff like that is monstrous. Like the stuff that we used to digest and the stuff that got quite famous. Like who's that?
Alex Williamson.
No. It's a bigger American. She got in trouble recently for being awful, but she's always
Miranda Sings.
Miranda Sings, yes. Terrible character that is deeply offensive.
So this is early internet, because I guess I never keep track of these things, because the second you see something like Fred, you're like, get it off me, burn it.
It's not early internet like that, but it's between early internet and TikTok. It's more around Vine era, I think.
There is a famous composer called Bella Bartok.
Oh, of course.
Who I think is what the bat's named after, and for all I know, it's what this is.
What a weird reference to put in a children's film.
Yeah, but one of the reviews of this also said it's like a Nickelodeon movie that says fuck.
It is a little bit, yeah. It's got slime energy.
It's an SNL movie. It's a Nickelodeon movie. It's a throwback. It's Beetlejuice seems to be one of the main things that they're going for with the tone here.
And I wish that they had lent more into the Beetlejuice, but we'll get into that. So Onyx's friends in this are the other competition winners who become our sort of ragtag Scooby-Doo bunch. Everyone is very much a capital C character in this. So we've got Mac, who's played by Rivka Reyes from School of Rock. Love them. We have Shelley, played by Arden Myron, who's done a lot of TV stuff. She's got a great face. The kind of face that's very good for playing like a Midwestern evangelist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She seems to be doing a Tammy Faye Baker in this.
Yeah. She's got a little bit of the energy of, that actress that always plays like horrible religious women in movies, the one who's... I doubt your commitment to sparkle motion. Funny that you knew exactly who I was talking about as well. Yes, yeah, a little bit like that, but more frenetic. We've got Jess Minder, played by Melanie Chandra, also done a lot of TV. And then Mr. Duke, played by Terrence Carson, who's a professor, who's in Final Destination 2. Final Destination 2,
and also the voice of Kratos from God of War, which is the video game, that's a very big deal. Like this guy,
I'll take your word for it.
His voice is very famous. If you couldn't see him, you'd know him when he speaks, because it's also a lovely voice. You could listen to it. It does have a good voice. Yeah. It's so nice.
It is nice. I guess that's why he's playing this like esteemed kind of, I don't know if he's Ivy League, but he seems Ivy League.
Yeah.
They're asked to, as Martin mentioned, exchange personal items for these peridot gem sort of necklaces. That's how Bartok's protege or whatever is going to control them, because she's a witch. We'll meet her in a minute. But in the house, the first person we meet is, of course, Bartok. Jeffrey Combs. He's such a big character in this, finally.
He was having... Yeah, it was nice for him to be back in horror comedy. It looks like he's loving it.
Yeah, because there's definitely been some films where not only does he have a small role, but he's not having fun.
Yeah, and it also feels less like somebody said, this is a Jeffrey Combs role. Whereas this, they definitely said, get Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, he has a lot of fun Jeff stuff in this. He's dead when we meet him. A video appears on a TV telling the group that they need to, as a test of faith, raise him from the dead. I'm not entirely sure about the purpose of that. I guess it's just to bond the group together.
I was just so worried that Jeffrey Combs' character was lying dead on the floor and talking to us from a TV, and I just went, oh no, all his bits are going to have been filmed in a room on like one afternoon, and that's the most Jeff we're going to get. But no. They do the ritual of we have faith, and it raises him back from the dead. Yeah. People get stabbed in the chest a lot, and it doesn't kill them in this. It's a running thing. And he comes back and he says, welcome to my mansion. And his offside is already there, right?
I think she comes with him. But
yeah. Olivia Taylor-Dudley, who is one of the 5 Second Films people, the blonde one. I like her a lot. She's wearing green hair in this.
She's also in the Paranormal Activity films.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, she plays Farah, who's, I guess, a witch. She has a lot of different powers that can do different things.
She's a succubus, but that gets revealed later.
I mean,
an odd moment.
You got to have a succubus. Yeah. Here's a little clip of what Jeff's doing as Bartok. I think it's really fun.
This weekend, You will take part in 3 rituals. The first 2 in preparation for the third and final, the ritual of Abaddon. Rising, and in that ritual under a black moon, all of you shall be renewed as disciples in his name, disciples of Abaddon with renewed purpose, knowledge, power, and yes, my children, immortality. Nice.
So their first ritual is to bleed on the Grand Grimoire, which is the Devil's Bible, I guess it's referred to, which I love the sound of. Like the production design in this, like just in the
Everything looks great. All the costumes are really good. We've skipped over all the early... There's a bunch of stuff before they get to the mansion, but we haven't mentioned it. It's terrible. It's the main character, Onyx, is working in a meat shop.
Oh, yeah, he works in a hamburger bar.
He works at a hamburger place. He's very sad about his life.
Yeah.
There's various things that go on there. They dwell on that for quite a while. We've skipped over it, but I will say it's like a solid 10, maybe 15-minute chunk at the start of the film.
Yeah, I guess it's really to hammer home how miserable his life is and how much he needed to have this opportunity. His job sucks. Everyone hates him. His parents are shit. You know, he also tends to get along with these cohorts at the mansion pretty much immediately, and he's probably quite happy to have these friends, which is nice.
They seem to be the only people in the world who could possibly stand somebody like Onyx.
Well, I mean, and even one of them at least does not like him immediately, but she's also meant to be our resident bitch, Jess Minder. We're meant to not really think she's very nice, which is probably why she's the first to, but we'll get to it. I'm not really sure the purpose of the Grand Grimoire.
Is this the thing where it reveals to them all what they were in a past life? Or the character they're playing in the ritual?
Or their ancestry or something. So they basically have to bleed on this big book that looks very cool. Again, all the props and the sets and everything look really good. It's not a cheap film.
I think it is a cheap film. I think they've just done an amazing job with it.
It doesn't look cheap is the thing.
Yeah. It reminds me of that thing with Clancy Brown, the mortuary assistant. I think they did a similar thing where it's like... They actually, if you told me it was like $2 million, I could believe you. They've just worked their butts off on like making sure all of it looks great.
They care about details and they care about things looking good, and they care about things not necessarily later when we see some of the practical effects in the film. They don't care about it looking realistic, but they care about it looking cool.
Yeah.
So they have to bleed on this book, and it tells them. Again, I couldn't quite work out whether it was them in a past life, whether it's their spirit, whether it's their ancestry.
It's the part they have to play in the ritual.
And
they go through each of the characters. The professor, it turns out that in a past life he was a werewolf, or that's his spirit. The housekeeper lady, she was a Viking in a past life.
She's not a housekeeper.
She's like she was married to a pastor. That was
she was a pastor's wife.
She says she became a Satanist because her husband died in an accident, and she decided to devote her life to Satan. Fun thing about the film, she doesn't get punished for that. I was quite happy about that. When she said that, I was like, oh, she's going to get torn up.
No.
Like, that's the kind of thing. No, they don't.
They love Shelley.
They're not as anti the devoted Satanists as you'd imagine.
This is a very pro-Satan film.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, and so they go through each of them, and they tell them about their past lives, and they get to Onyx, and they reveal that his part in the ritual is not the werewolf, it's not the Viking, it's not the witch, it is the fat virgin.
Who is apparently still an important part of the ritual.
Yeah, it's a little... It is like there aren't many things that made me laugh throughout this film, though I enjoyed the energy. That part I did find kind of funny. In the next scene, they're talking about dreams they had of their past lives, and they ask him if he had a dream of what his past life was. He said, I don't know, I had a dream last night about not fucking anybody.
Some of the jokes, I was like, oh, that feels like, I don't know, you know when jokes feel forced in that kind of like Deadpool way?
There's nothing really in this that is as funny as anything in Deadpool. The references they're picking are a lot stronger than... There's a bit later on where Onyx is going on about marshmallow stuffing jars. And dude. Oh, you just want him to shut up.
Some of the jokes, they're like 1 or 2 lines too long. Yeah. But there are a few jokes in here where I'm like it's almost like trying to force virality or force something to become a catchphrase, you know? I don't know, maybe that's just me, but there was one funny line when I think the professor says, well, are you a virgin? There's no shame in it. And Onyx says,
well, first of all, Mr. Duke, there is shame in everything. I'm surprised they didn't teach you that in Yale school.
That's funny.
There's an annoying thing about that is like the way he says it in the movie is not like he's reacting to the professor. Bowser in general is not. I think he's always just doing the character as if he's talking right to a video camera, whereas the character should be like reacting to other people in the room.
It's not a naturalistic character. No, there's a couple of moments in here where Onyx has to be quite sincere, and the character being toned down is quite nice. Because that you think, well, if Onyx was a real person, this is how he would really talk. So Bartok is looking for the talisman. That's part of his whole deal. That will keep coming up as his main motivations for why he has these people here. A few of them decide to break into Bartok's study. I don't know why they're immediately suspicious of him because they're all such big fans, but they decide to because they want to know what's happening, and they're like, what's this bullshit about the Talisman of Souls?
It's because they're an expert in the story they need to have happen is that they start investigating Bartok.
Yeah. It's it's Scooby-Doo. Onyx gets trapped in like a secret passageway, like behind the walls. He's a wall boy, where he becomes privy to Bartok and Farah discussing their infernal plan and how that they intend to lure each one of them to their doom, because basically they have to kill each of the 5 people in order to trap their soul in the talisman. I think that's what's happening.
And I think they're doing that. I watched this film so recent. Couldn't tell you why he's doing it.
Yeah, I mean...
I think it is immortality, power something.
Power, immortality.
They're going to summon a big demon. Maybe it gives you a present. If he does, I'm sorry I missed it.
Well, look, who knows what anyone's motivations are? Yeah. Why does anyone do anything? The little chant that we hear Bartok do here...
Give me the power. I beg of you.
It's the chant from Child's Play, right?
I can believe that.
Yeah,
Later on, someone drops a Klaatu Barada Nick too from Evil Dead. So yeah.
Well, because it's the "Give me the power, I beg of you." That's from Child's Play, right?
I can believe that.
Yeah, I'm almost positive it is the chant from Child's Play. I should have looked it up, but I'm pretty sure it is. Which I don't know if that's a reference to Child's Play, or if it is just a real ritualistic chant that they use, because I don't know where it came from in Child's Play either. But
most Satanist mythology is like stuff from the last 100 years, so sure, it's a real one, and it's also in a movie.
Yeah.
From a movie.
As I said, Jasminder's the first to die with this huge ritualistic knife. The practical effects start here, really. The effect on the each of the 5 when they die and become ghouls is so fun. They look so weird. It's very Beetlejuice.
Big silly Muppet heads.
Muppet heads, tongue lagging out, very bright colours.
Yeah.
It looks super fun. Because up until then, a lot of the effects have been just very small amounts of like CG. But when it ramps up into the practical stuff and we start getting a lot more puppets, because we do get a lot more puppets in the rest of the film, and that's a huge amount of fun. Yeah, so it's Mac, Onyx, and the Professor. They're the ones who are trying to solve it. Because Jasminder believes that her and Bartok were lovers in a past life, so she obviously doesn't want to help them destroy him. Speaking of great puppets, the box ritual is next, where basically Farah takes each of the contestants to this box in a room where you exchange a secret for a truth. Basically, you tell the box one of your most shameful secrets, and it gives you a truth that you are meant to know. The box demon is sick.
Yeah, it's real cool. It has a lovely voice. It's a gross little penis-looking thing.
Yes, it's really fun.
There's a lot going on at the same time. At this point, they're still taking part in the rituals, while they're also while simultaneously the 3 characters are investigating Bartok to try to figure out what his secret plan is, because Onyx has seen him kill another member of the group. The film seems to flow along. Fair enough. I was never sort of watching the film wondering what they were doing in the scene. I was always aware, including the fact that it's so cliche. You're like, oh, this is the bit in the story where they get discovered, rifling through the drawers. This is, the bit in the story where one of them, disappears all of a sudden. Like, you're not at a loss, even though you realize that a lot of Post-it notes probably had to be rearranged to figure out what's going to happen next.
Well, the voice on the box demon is Jason Marsden, not James Marsden. Jason Marsden, who was the voice, I know him as the voice of Max from a Goofy movie.
Oh, that's a great get, and a big get later on. Abaddon, the demon they're trying to summon, is played literally by Ralph Ineson from The Witch and a whole bunch of really high-profile.
Yeah, That's right.
High-profile movies. He's getting a fair amount of work recently. He's doing quite well.
He's great, and I mean it's a shame when he does voice acting because he's got such a good face.
Chris Finch from The Office, if you don't.
Yeah, or he was in most recently he was in The Creator, Green Knight.
His voice does come up from hell. There's so many great voices in this movie.
Yeah.
You got Jeff, you got the voice of Kratos, you got Ralph Ineson. Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
But then the payment for that is you have to listen to Andrew Bowser doing that thing.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of fun creature performers as well who are doing a really good job with the various puppets and stuff. It's really fun. I'm really happy that the practical effects were a big part of this because that's something I look for in a horror movie all the time.
It's really interesting as well that when you would think about a character like this, it would be like a found footage horror movie. There was that recent one, Deadstream or whatever, because he's known from like short internet videos of like of short things, but instead like they've actually gone all out to do like a full special effects laden horror film.
The thing I do appreciate is that sometimes when you watch a film where they've based it so much around one character that the other characters don't have anything to do. And so the whole film rides on one character. This isn't so much that. Like, the other characters do get things to do.
The other characters are doing a real thing, and Onyx is running around like a cartoon cat, not shutting up.
It has huge cartoon energy while they're doing the box ritual. And again, I'll put up some photos of the puppets because even though it's nice to see the puppets pop up when you watch this, I'll just show you what they look like so you know what you're in for. While they're doing the box ritual, Onyx goes looking to get a part of the grimoire, I think. There's just this stupid little bit where he spots Bartok doing a workout to one of his own workout videos called Keeping It Beefy. So you get to see Jeff in his underwear doing bicep curls saying, "Keeping it beefy." It's fun. I mean, every movie should have it.
It's wonderful. He's very committed.
Yeah.
I mean, he shows up in the next scene. I appreciate it in the next scene still wearing the tracksuit from the workout.
Yeah. He's in like active leisure wear later.
Yeah, still Satan themed active leisure wear. It's very fun.
Oh yeah, because you got to keep it beefy. The thing that Onyx offers to the box demon as his most shameful secret is his own sexual fantasy, which is Gadget from Chippendale Rescue Rangers. This obviously speaks to the millennial experience of the early internet, where people would often put cartoon characters into sexual stuff. I'm sure that most people in their 30s would have seen on the internet at some point, hand-drawn usually, pictures of various Simpsons characters fucking each other, Family Guy.
For some reason, I was thinking about this because we did a Simpsons podcast recently. You know what, one of the things that's always very upsetting in Simpsons porn? Pink nipples on Marge. Or like one of them, like Homer's naked and he's got a big pink dick, and you're like, what?
They've got yellow skin. It doesn't make sense.
They've got, for some reason, I could, if it was like a pale shade of brown, I would be like, oh no, for some reason that like color matches. Well, like if there was a yellow man, that would be the right color.
The nipples make sense because your nipples and your areola are a different color generally to your breast skin. But your penis is usually the same color.
The pink is so not complementary to the yellow.
No, that's true.
It's really upsetting.
So you're looking at it from an aesthetic point of view?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Which if it's nudity and it's intended to do something for people.
Oh, true.
You know.
For some reason, I don't think that they were taking that into account when they were making hand-drawn Simpsons pornography. I think they just thought it would be really gross and weird if Bart was fucking Santa's little helper or something. Yeah.
But yeah, so they talk about the shared experience of being attracted to Gadget, that we're all supposed to think that we're all, and I've heard it before, people say how they were attracted to Gadget from Rescue Rangers. When I first heard it, I thought, oh yeah, I guess I can remember. She has kind of a big butt, right? That's kind of hot. But I have looked at pictures of Gadget since. No, she doesn't. She's just wearing overalls.
I would assume it's the male equivalent, or the person who's interested in women equivalent of when you're a young lady or a person who's interested in men, you really like...
The fox in Robin Hood.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So I'm not going to judge.
Yeah.
I look, I get it. I think there is something that we all have to examine in ourselves about the way we grew up with cartoon characters, but
Yeah, it's also not that shameful. Like, I was expecting, honestly, in the scene where he meets the secret demon and the demon asks him for a closely held secret, I was thinking it would be a more pointed thing to say that the demon's like, you have no secrets. You say everything on your mind as soon as you think it.
yep,
Because that's all he does.
pretty much. Yeah, he's quite open with people. Yeah,
There are no boundaries with this man because he is incapable of holding them in his head.
no, the box demon does tell Onyx a truth though, and it says that the reason that his father left him, the reason his family, his father left him was because of him.
He said you weren't enough.
You weren't enough. In the flashback as well, I mean, I don't think you need to be eagle-eyed to have seen this. I think it's quite obvious. But Onyx's father is played by Jeffrey Combs. I don't know why they did that.
I think it's
Maybe-
to say that like the reason why he's come to the mansion is because this man is like a father figure to him. I don't think they're supposed to be the same character.
No, I
think
think
it's
that
just.
I think that we're just supposed to think that the reason that Onyx likes Bartok so much is because he reminds him. I don't even think that there is a scene until the very end where Bartok even talks directly to Onyx. Really, like he has no reason to have affection for this man.
I like the disdain because Onyx works in a fast food restaurant. I did like the disdain in Jeffrey Combs' delivery of the line, "The patty slinger."
He is a patty slinger.
Patty slinger.
He slings patties. That's fine. Look, they're doing the Lord's work. Everyone should have a working wage.
Someone just threw the podcast down and walked out of the room.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta keep these libertarian Combs fans listening.
Well, the flashback also reveals the genesis of Onyx's, tick.
Yeah.
Because little Onyx says to his dad, when are you coming back? And his dad says, I don't know. I assume that was just a way of being like...
It's a way of adding a little depth to a character
Yeah.
who has none, so they've added one layer to him, so that's kind of nice.
Onyx does get very upset after the box demon stuff, so he gets drunk, which he doesn't normally do. He does mention earlier in the movie that he's not much of a drinker. He just likes his tiny wines. He has a bizarre fantasy related to a comment he made about the mansion that he says it looks a lot like the settings for Meatloaf's I Would Do Anything for Love video, as a passing comment. That becomes the basis for this fantasy where he imagines himself and Farah running around the castle. It doesn't look like the castle from I Would Do Anything for Love, by the way. It's completely different. I think they just...
It's a lovely looking house.
Oh, it's
Very
lovely.
nice.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't love to live there. It's very nice. But you know what it made me realise? I was watching this, Martin. I hadn't seen the video for I Would Do Anything for Love by Meatloaf. So
It's a vampire movie. It's a weird little vampire
when the
movie.
movie finished, I thought, well, I have to watch this video. Nobody fucking told me this is the best video I've ever seen. It's the best video in the world. It's Beauty and the Beast. It's there's a motorcycle goes through a window.
It was one of Michael Bay's first things, right? It was his like big breakout hit. Was
amazing.
He did, yeah. And it's a funny. I liked the sequence, but I think I liked the sequence because I like Meatloaf, and that's cheating.
Well,
The truth is, I would rather have been listening to Meatloaf than watching this movie, and I would rather be listening to Meatloaf than doing this podcast. Like, it's just
Martin,
so.
we're friends. We're spending time together.
You are one of my best friends, and I would still rather listen to Meatloaf. Probably, maybe not. I would do anything to love, like for love. Like I would listen to Wasted Youth, but like it rocks so hard. R.I.P. Jim and Meatloaf.
I mean,
gods among us.
It is amazing how many of my all-time favorite songs involve Jim Steinman. Like, just there's something about people that can do power ballads, and especially rock power ballads, really well. I drove to a friend's place last night. It was about a 17 or 18 minute drive, and I could only listen to 2 Meatloaf songs. Because they are so long.
Well, Bad Out of Hell, the full version's like 12 minutes or some shit.
Yeah,
isn't
something
it?
like that, yeah. So Farah, part of this sequence with the Meatloaf thing is Farah trying to communicate to Onyx that she wants him to take her away from Bartok. She's sick of Bartok, apparently, even though she has very happily helped him kill at least 2 people by now.
But she's a succubus, so that's normal.
Yeah, so she's just like, oh, you and me, let's get out of here. You can save me from Bartok.
Because as Onyx the Fortuitous, he is destined to get the power from the ritual to get really strong with magic. You know, one of those things.
Classic He-Man fantasy. There's a fun big demon in this sequence, another really good puppet. I think that this is the Ralph Ineson demon. Just an incredibly cool looking puppet. Like, it's not one of those puppets that, again, it doesn't need to look real.
Yeah.
Because it's a puppet. We know that's got the big flapping mouth and stuff, but the puppet looks so sick.
He has the big tail and he's like up on his haunches,
Yeah,
so he
he's
can
sitting like a cat.
They're in like the fantasy version of the drive-through, and
Yeah.
and Onyx is serving him through the window, and he's perched up there. I love him.
It looks really good,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I mean by like it should always be practical effects. If you're going to make a horror comedy, I don't want to see CGI. It's almost never good.
It's also confusing in this sequence. The demon Abaddon in the fantasy tells Onyx that he is not Onyx the Fortuitous, as predicted by the ritual. He's not. Later on in the movie, we find out he is, and I guess that was a lie.
I have to assume so.
It's odd that he would lie about that. Anyway,
Sometimes demons lie.
they've always played straight with me, Lisa.
This is where Onyx and Mac have that nice little moment that I mentioned where they're trying to talk each other down. They're both very scared of what's happening, and Onyx is scared because he knows he has to save everybody. And yeah, it's quite nice. Again, it's nice when the character's pared down a little and talks like a normal person. The next couple of sequences are more ghouls because Mr. Duke, the professor, he dies.
Shelley's already been turned into
Shelley's
a ghoul.
Shelley's already dead. Yeah, Jasminder's dead. And eventually Mac dies somewhere in this sequence as well. Onyx has to save the day, by which he has to. There's again part of the convoluted mythology. He has to throw himself into a pit. When Bartok has summoned Abaddon, a pit will open to hell. He has to throw himself into the pit.
If he is truly the Fortuitous, he will be granted magical power, which means a big sword that kind of shoots purple.
A big sword and glowing eyes.
Yeah.
And he also will get the chance to reanimate his friends, basically, back to how they were.
Yeah, it's a magic button to make sure the film has a happy ending.
Yeah, it's the sonic screwdriver of the film, which he does, of course. You know, there's sort of a actiony sequence of Farah also betraying Bartok and, you know, going against him in the end. She eventually decapitates Bartok. That one's not as fun, practical effects wise, like that. It gets very, you know, muddled with blood. It's
Maybe it didn't look great, so they cut around it a bit.
Could be, yeah. Farah wants to take Onyx to rule in hell. So she's basically like, let's fuck and rule in hell. And he's obviously like, that would actually be sick, but I have friends now, and I'd rather have friends. Which I think is a good choice.
Also, Matt kissed him at some point earlier, so maybe he figured there was something going on there.
Yeah, I was expecting more of a romance between them. I'm kind of glad it wasn't.
At the end, they're dancing together. So
they're dancing, but yeah, I mean, they don't have like a big swooning kiss or anything. So I don't know if it's meant to be strictly romantic. It could be just platonic and nice. But
platonic with kissing.
Yeah. What you don't kiss a friend?
No.
No. Well, you're missing out, buddy. So yes, he decides to stay, reanimate his mates. There's some very fun effects when Farah turns into a demon bat, and then
she's
goes
really
to hell.
angry with Onyx for rejecting her, which I don't know. You think she'd be happy that she'd been freed, but also like
move on, babe.
Yeah. Also, it's not. You know, Onyx is a weird bundle of stuff. What are you after that?
Yeah, but she's like, hey, you've got power. You've got power now. Let's go do stuff in hell. In our sort of what would you call it? Epilogue. Onyx seems to run the mansion now. He seems to live there.
Because his friends now irrevocably changed by their state of being killed, and now they've like transformed into the Viking and the werewolf and the witch into their true selves.
Yeah, so
and
Duke is a wolf now, pretty much full time. Jasminda she was a witch.
She was a queen?
She was a queen of some sort, so she's painting a portrait. I guess that's what queens did. Shelley is a Viking. She's just dressed kind of weird. Mac is a witch who's honing her powers. So they're all having fun. It looks like one of those... It looks like, the way they're living, it looks like the start of a young adult series set in like a paranormal academy.
To me, it looks like Onyx has become the fifth member of the polycule he was always destined to be part of, based on the way that he dresses and behaves. Sure, their board game nights are real fun.
What's that Chris Fleming joke? It's amazing how welcoming the burlesque community has been. There's some kids running around, and for a while I was like, who the fuck's kids are they? And I realized that Shelley very briefly mentions she has children early in her introduction, so I have to assume those are hers. She doesn't talk to them, though. There's no scene with them. Yeah, Onyx invites his mum and stepdad over. They don't seem terribly impressed. They kind of seem weirded out, which is rude. I think. Like, why not just let them be happy?
Oh, you'd just be so happy to have Onyx not in your house anymore.
But yeah, it also seems like, you know, mum and stepdad love to fuck, so I reckon, it's nice that they've got the house themselves. And that's fine, because if you were married to Barbara Crampton, as if you would not hit that daily, nightly, and ever so rightly. Although pretty much the last line of the film is something that the actor playing the stepdad says, where he says, it's when Mac has asked Onyx to dance with her and they start floating in the air a la Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
And dancing in the air.
To a Calypso version of I Would Do Anything to Love,
which is very Beetlejuice, yes.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of a fun version of the song as well. Yeah, the actor says, he's your kid, not mine, which is a joke I fucking hate. Yeah. It's such a shit joke to end this this movie.
In a way, it's a
Marvel joke.
Yeah, it's in keeping with the tone of the movie in general. I think
it's got some good jokes, but that's just it felt really lazy. I really hated it. But yeah, and everyone is happy except for Farah, who in the epilogue is living in a tin shack, it seems, in the middle of nowhere with Bartok's
Ghost head.
Ghost head. It seems to be in a jar, but it also seems to be glowing like it's a spirit. In many ways, she's become Herbert West. She is vowing revenge on Onyx, which
we will see in the sequel, but maybe not, because this film doesn't have a Wikipedia page, so that doesn't feel promising.
Yeah, like it seems open for a sequel, but I cannot imagine they would make a sequel to this.
The end of Beetlejuice is a teaser for a sequel as well, so I guess that's kind of in keeping.
Is it?
Yeah, whereas in The Waiting Room, it's like it feels like we're going to get another one of these.
Well, yes, I have heard,
and we are now getting another one.
Yes, I have
Beetlejuice. Because then they get to do the third one. I don't like Beetlejuice.
I like Beetlejuice. I don't love it in the way people do. I'd much rather watch like the Addams Family from the 90s.
Well, that's the thing is like Beetlejuice and the other, that sort of like horror comedy tone thing, which incidentally The Frighteners is really part of, that kind of 90s, heightened, silly. Yeah, like I think they were very popular, but I think the two Addams Family movies are sort of an unrealistic standard for those, because they are both horror comedies and also maybe the two of the funniest written films of that whole decade.
I love them so much. I can rewatch those two Addams Family movies repeatedly. I have watched them repeatedly. I've probably watched them both at least once a year since I was a kid.
It's just the solidest sitcom level gags that you've ever seen.
And the performances are so good. Like, everybody's leaning into it. They all love it. The style within the movies is so good. Like, the whole world is good. And fundamentally, the thing with the Addams Family that's good is that you like the Addams Family because they're kooky and ooky and stuff, but they're not the weird ones in that world. Like, when you watch, like, a lot of the movies, a lot of the quote-unquote normal characters are awful. And, they're like racist and they're normies and they're kind of boring, or they're, Republicans or whatever. And so, you realize it's like, oh, the Addams Family are meant to be weird because they like each other and they're like realistic about death, and they're a husband and wife that like to fuck each other, Raul Julia in those movies he has chunks of scenery coming out of his teeth. It is.
And also, what's his name? The guy from Back to the Future.
Christopher
Lloyd. Yeah, that is a big thing, is all the protagonists is Angelica Houston. It's a very high-level cast. This has a great cast, but then, unfortunately, it does have Onyx as the protagonist. And that's really, without him, it wouldn't have gotten made, because they would have said, your clips have gotten this many views, so, I guess it's worth throwing like $1 million at you to make a picture. And so that's how it got made. It's a thing of like, if he said he was going to make another movie but not cast himself in it, I'd be done. This is a lot of fun. I get what you're going for here.
I like his visual eye.
And it's quite well cut together and everything.
Well, I believe he edited it as well.
Yeah.
So it's a very independent project, like relatively small production cast.
I'd love a murder mystery with this whole cast, because obviously Jeff. Has Jeff ever done much
murder mystery?
Yeah.
No, most of the films he's done that have had murder, it's not really a mystery.
No. No, it's a shame, because it's
get him for Knives Out 3. I would to see him in one of those like really high quality ensemble films like that, like a Knives Out, or any of those great ensemble comedies that they did in the 90s. Like, he'd be so good. Put him up against like David Hyde Pierce or something. Like, just get him being a feral and get a little weenie guy and they can fight.
Yeah.
Oh, just a Knives Out, but full of like horror character actors.
And I guess it is part of the appeal of this film as well, is that it does have that kind of that, and then there were none structure. Like you said, there's no mystery to it. We know everything that's going on as soon as it's happening. They explain, or somebody happens to spy what's going on, which is fine. But yeah, I was watching it thinking like, oh God, I would love to see. I mean, hell, if you can just remake and then there were none, but you have a different murderer, because I know who the murderer is.
Yeah.
And then there were none. Just pick somebody else. There's like 12 characters.
Yeah, just as I said, and then there were none, just full of like
There's 10 characters.
full of that guys that you love seeing pop up in film.
I can definitely see him slipping into a Guillermo del Toro film quite easily.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about him. I think now, in order to get Guillermo del Toro films made at the budget, it has to be like, no, you need to get Richard O'Brien at least. You can't.
But who knows? I mean, we shall see. He is turning 70 this year. So look, he's getting on.
That's nothing. I saw Stephen Root in Barry the other day, and he is a big part of that, and he's 72, so...
Love Stephen Root again. Love that guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was thinking about the ones that I've done so far, and this is one of the better films that I've seen, certainly, as part of it. I got Bride of Reanimator, which, especially in hindsight, I think once you've sat through Brutal, Bride of Reanimator looks like a fucking masterpiece.
It is a masterpiece, Martin. It's a masterpiece of the horror comedy genre.
And I got Necronomicon, which is fucking
Also
classic,
great.
and everyone should watch it. None of that is Jeff's fault.
Well, when you're a jobbing actor, I assume that...
You've definitely never seen a film and thought, oh, this would have been great if it wasn't for what Jeff's doing. That's,
No.
He is 110%.
He invigorates the set, which is why we're here, why I'm here, why I do this little project, and why I will have numerous other projects coming up to do with Jeff that I will pepper through until they are more confirmed. I'm just going to tease this out until I.
You're going to marry Jeff?
No, he's married. I wouldn't be a home wrecker, not to Jeff.
You're going to put his face on the moon?
Yes. No, I'm going to put his face on my face. I'm going to face off him. Which means he'll have to face off me, and he'll have to come hang out with my cat.
He'll have to figure out the essence of Lisa so he can portray you most accurately.
Yeah, and he'll have to... and then
He'll have to do his own Jeff podcast.
Yeah, and then I'll have to go and fuck his wife.
Aw.
Pretend to be him.
You need to keep them together. It's very important. You respect their marriage so much.
Yeah.
You can't not have sex with his wife.
No. I need to make sure that she still thinks he loves her, obviously. And then that's when we take our faces off. Anything to plug, Martin Dunlop?
Nah.
No?
I'm getting up in the mornings, I'm shuffling around.
Yeah.
Let's just hope that continues.
Yeah, just sitting in cupboards.
Yeah.
Reading under dim lamps.
No.
Yeah, sitting under a big poster of World War II. I don't know, this is what dads do, right?
Yeah, no. I'm on Blue Sky, but fuck, man.
It's weird there.
It's dead. Well, it's dead.
I deleted it. Yeah, I just Twitter's. There's too much backstory. We've got too much history with Twitter. I think I can't just abandon her now.
I'm just gonna accept it life without social media.
I accept social media for what it is. Terrible. I think it's as good and bad as you can make it. Obviously, I don't hate follow anybody, and if I see people that are deliberately trying to make the world a worse place, I will often block them rather than engage. Don't engage. Just don't bother.
No.
It's not worth it. Speaking of...
Please follow me.
Speaking of social media being the root of all evil in modern society, follow me on the podcast. I'm at Lisa Dib One. The podcast is at reanimatespod. The episodes will be up on YouTube as well. Follow the socials as well, especially because the aforementioned projects that are in the works will be very interesting for people who live in Australia. It'll be a little bit more useful to you one day.